What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Speaking Sessions podcast. Today, I want to talk about what most people do whenever they're starting to get into public speaking and what it is that they do wrong. A lot of people, when they decide, hey, I want to go speak on stage, they often think about speaking on anything. They feel like they can speak on any single subject. Their only worry is to actually get on stage. And this is the worst thing that you can do, because if you're trying to get on stage, the only way to get on stage, besides, I guess, asking, there's a few other things, but the main way you get on stage is by being known for something that you talk about or something that you've done or that you are currently doing. It's about one particular thing. Most people don't get on stage until they've already been on stage quite a few times for a ton of things that they've done. And even when they get on stage, it's only to talk about one particular thing. So for those of you that are just getting started with public speaking, or maybe you've been in it for a little bit, but you're wondering why you can't get on stage, think about the subject that you're trying to talk about, or think about the subjects you're trying to talk about, because a lot of us, myself included, have started out with thinking, I can speak about anything. I can go on stage and talk about mindset, fitness, public speaking, business, masterminds, you name it. There's so many subjects that we can all talk about, and some of them do intertwine, and that's okay if you intertwine things and make that connection between a couple different subjects, but you should have a main focus when you go to speak on stage. And this is where most people get tripped up, because they don't have that main focus. And when you don't have a main focus, people aren't going to be able to follow you as the speaker. They're not going to be able to follow what message you're trying to get across. And of course, you can wrap up your speech by giving them the message that you want them to take away from that speech, but that's not going to help in the long run. Yes, it may help there in the moment. Maybe it'll help at every single speech, because the audience will be, oh, okay, that's what Philip wanted me to take away. But the thing is, when people watch the videos of you speaking, or the videos of you being on social media, or wherever they end up seeing your content, they're going to think, wait a second, what does Philip actually talk about? What is Philip an expert in? So when you're speaking, you need to make sure you speak on one specific message. You don't want to convolute your message. You don't want to water down your message because you decide you can talk about anything. Because those that are for everything are really for no one. If you're going to talk about anything and everything, you're not going to be able to connect with a single individual. You have to speak on one specific subject so that you can connect with those people that are trying to do that. Just like car people, you'll probably talk about cars, and those of you that are not car people, and I don't know why I'm using this example, because I'm not a car person. I guess maybe that's why, but I'm not a car person. So if somebody started talking about cars in a speech and trying to relate with that, I would understand some of the stuff. But if they got into all the mechanics and the electronics behind that car, yeah, I'm going to really struggle with following what they're saying or really being engaged with their speech. And I know this is more, you could create a story around this, or maybe you're specifically talking about cars and about maintenance and things of that nature. But for me, not being a car person, that's not something that's going to interest me. I'm not going to be interested in that speaker as much. And they could be a great speaker and they could give a lot of great truths. But because I'm not interested in that, I'm going to tune out. And this is what it's like when you don't speak a specific message. People tune out because they can't figure out where to focus. It's okay if people tune out when you are speaking a specific message, as long as you know that there's people in the audience that are going to resonate with that specific message or specific values that you decide to bring out. You as a speaker have to realize who your audience is when you speak your message, so you can really nail down that person in that audience and make them think, man, they're talking to me. I know they're talking to me right now. And this is why we do that particular message, that one specific message, so that you can reach that one person. Hopefully it's hundreds of people, hopefully it's thousands of people, but more than likely you're not going to reach everybody. It'd be very crazy if you did, to be honest, and hypothetically impossible to reach everybody, because not everybody's exactly the same, and that's okay. But that's why your message needs to be dialed in. It needs to be focused, be granular, very specific to the person you want to talk to the subject that you want to talk about. Because if you're just talking about any and every subject and you're not going into detail, and maybe detail is the wrong word, but if you're not going all in on your one message, one thing that you want to talk about, people are going to be confused. In a confused mind, one, it doesn't buy, but two, it doesn't remember you. Because a confused mind can't remember that person that confused them. The person that they're going to remember is the one that made them emotionally active, the one that drew them in to their speech. It's not about whether or not you're the best speaker out there, whether you say the right words. It's about the emotions that you bring out of the person. So going back to cars, as soon as I start talking about cars here on this video, on this podcast, you probably thought, oh, you probably semi-tuned out, although I wasn't going to talk about cars. I was just using it as an example, but maybe something a little bit more extreme. Not to bring politics in, but if I were to talk about one party or the other and say how great that party is, you would probably start tuning out. You would tune me out because you'd be like, oh my gosh, Philip, he's crazy. He's whatever side right now. That's what he's talking about. And he really likes that side. But if I'm talking about both sides, you may stay tuned in. But because I talk about one side or the other side, you tune out because I'm talking about that one side. And that's the side that doesn't matter to you. But if it's a side that does matter to you, you're going to tune in. So we have to make sure that we're speaking and know that we're going to speak to a specific group of people or a specific person with that specific message. And that's why we share that specific message, so that we reach that one person, we create that emotion for that one person, and so they can remember us when we're on stage. Because it's not about confusing people, it's about letting them know where it is that you're coming from, not where you stand, because it's not always about politics, but where you're coming from and what your message means and how it impacts them. Because if they can't understand your message, they can't relate it to themselves, and they can't figure out how it's going to impact them, how it's going to help them, how it's going to affect their lives, they're not going to be willing to change. And I hope you're getting on stage to change people, to help people become a better version of themselves, or to educate them, or whatever that looks like. But whatever you're trying to do, you're not going to create that result by being on the fence, by talking about everything. So make sure that your message is specific, because a specific message will be one that people can understand. And yes, again, they'll tune out whether they want to or not. But because you have that specific message, you'll get people that will tune in so much more than if you just have a generic message. So go make that message specific to talk to that specific individual. And that's how you're going to rock that stage and make people want to listen to you more, draw on those emotions, and build that following.